Buying land might seem simple, but it's one of the easiest ways to make a very expensive mistake.
Thinking about moving to DeSoto County, Mississippi? You're in the right place. I'm Jaime Ross, broker and owner of local agency Realty Group, and I help people navigate their next move, whether they're locating to the area, moving across town, upsizing, downsizing, or building their dream home. On this channel, we break down everything you need to know, from neighborhoods and home values to surrounding communities and what it's really like to live here. So if you're planning your next move, this is exactly where you want to be. Let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Jessica with Local Agency Realty Group. And if you're thinking about buying land, there are several important things to think about before you get started.
Jessica, welcome in. I'm glad to have you in today.
Happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here. You've got a lot of experience that comes to land,
Yes.
being that you're married to a builder.
Yes, absolutely.
So I know you hear a lot of, I'd say, pillow talk about like land and picking out the right property and all that kind of stuff.
I know more than
The average.
for sure.
Yeah, and exactly why I tapped you to come in and share with us today.
Okay.
How buyers can prepare for building a house when they're trying to pick out land, because most people are just like, I like that land, let's buy it.
And there's a lot more to consider than just finding a pretty piece of property.
Yes, because you can make any piece of property pretty.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I'd say, what is the most important thing to pay attention to when you're buying a property?
Location. Just
Okay.
like with residential properties, location is always going to be your top priority, especially if you have children, to consider school districts. Is my property in close proximity to an interstate? What are the neighborhoods around like? So very similar to residential properties.
Okay. What's the next thing that you pay attention to?
Definitely get it surveyed. You want to make sure that you can build what you want to build. You need to make sure it's zoned residential or can be zoned residential. You also want to make sure it's not in a 100-year floodplain. Insurance for a 100-year floodplain is really high.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to make sure that utilities can be run or are already there.
What kind of utilities? I mean, like the average person just assumes that everybody can get, flip a switch on, you get power, and then turn your faucets on, and then the water just appears.
So if you're buying a lot in a subdivision, which is land, a lot of times the sewer, electricity, all of that is already done for you, which is why your prices for a subdivision are a little higher than raw land. But with raw land, some districts require a certain amount of land to have a sewer system or to even run electricity, or not electricity, but plumbing to run your sewer. Like there's just a lot to consider there. Also the expense of having that done. If you're going to build a house, if it sits back off the road, a lot of electric companies charge a pretty penny to run power back there.
I was talking to a buyer, I don't even remember who it was, but it was about 2 weeks ago, and they were trying to build their house, like there was going to be like a 6-acre property, and they were back there. They were going to have a long driveway. You weren't going to see that house from the road. They got quoted almost $10,000 to run the electric back there.
Correct. And if you're on city water and city sewer, the city's going to charge you a pretty penny to run those utilities back to a house.
Yeah.
A lot of people, though, that build on a lot of land, especially if you're not in an incorporated area, if you're like in a county, you have a treatment plant or you have a well. But even those are very, very expensive, and getting people out there to set those up can be very time consuming.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much a septic, costs to install, but it's probably on par or maybe even a little bit more than getting hooked up with your city services.
It really
several $1,000s.
It really just depends on the proximity of your home to what's currently available.
Yeah.
But it's more expensive than people think.
Oh yeah, it is, definitely is. But let's talk about, like, a lot of people just buy wooded lots. And so with wooded lots comes, unlevel ground, and you start ripping trees out. Now you got unstable soil and prepping and doing dirt work. And what does that look like?
So you'll definitely have to have an individual who specializes in dirt work come out. And a lot of times if you are having to build up an area, let's say your land has low spots, and you need to build up that specific area to build your home, a lot of times you have to dig footers for your foundation because of how unstable that soil is, which also increases the cost to build.
Yes. And your builder can help you with that, though.
Oh, absolutely. Your builder will explain everything. And it's good if you're wanting to build a home on land to go ahead and have a builder lined up so that they can help you in that search for land and say, hey, this is probably not a great place to build, or this is an awesome place to build.
Yeah. And I will tell you, too, a really great resource is free for everybody that's available right at your fingertips is the GIS through DeSoto County. I use it all the time.
GIS is great. I just recently had a land deal where we had to pull it up to look at the survey because doing a survey was going to be a deal breaker for the seller. And so thankfully, my buyer's mortgage lender was like, we can just pull up that GIS. We can see the survey from there.
Yeah.
And it was a time saver for sure.
Yeah, because you definitely can see like recorded plats and things like that on there. And then sometimes somewhere along the way, somebody has done a survey and that'll be loaded up there. But one of my favorite things when it comes to land that I use GIS for is looking at those elevations, the changes in elevation. So I can see if you've got like a 60-foot drop off in a very short amount of space, that tells me there's gullies. I like putting the water filter on top of it. That way I can see if you've got water running through it. Because you don't always see all that stuff just because you walked out through the property one time. It might have been a really dry couple weeks. Water wasn't running there. And so it's important to kind of look at those filters that are out there.
Oh, it's always important to do all of your background information on land because with residential, a lot of that background work has already been done. You know, it's with an existing home. And with land, a lot of sellers, if they don't know, they can't disclose. So you've got to do your due diligence and do your homework.
Yeah,
for sure.
Let's talk about due diligence because due diligence for buying land is a whole lot different than buying a house.
It is. I mean, in some ways it is easier, and in other ways it's more difficult. With land ownership, sometimes as deeds get recorded and as ownership changes, like in this last deal that I did, the company that was offering the land didn't actually own the land. They were not the owners of record. They had power of attorney over the land, but the actual owners were somebody different. So it made the deal work a little bit differently than it would have normally. But you always want to make sure that you are looking at things like runoff and is it in a floodplain and am I going to need different kind of insurance? Am I need additional insurance for this? Is it going to be difficult to get people back there to build? Is there an easement on it? Does part of my land fall on somebody else's, or do I have to go through somebody else's land to get to my land? There's a lot of things to consider,
especially when you're out buying like large tracts of land. I see a lot of that where people will be landlocked. Or somebody's subdivided and it's been like that for 30 or 40 or 50 years. And now this person wants to sell it and now they've got to have an easement to get back there. And so that's a permanent easement that ends up getting recorded, but it needs to be recorded so that you'll always have access to come on the driveway. So
absolutely.
Definitely something to consider.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about restrictions because that's a real deal too. I mean, there's oftentimes, I'm dealing with one right now where someone bought a piece of property and didn't realize a restriction that was on the property until they owned it. And in fact, they've owned it for like 10 years and they're just realizing it now.
And that's part of your due diligence with buying property is to know everything that you can possibly know about that piece of land. I want to build this type of house. Is there enough space to do that? Does it meet the minimum requirements if there are any? If there's any restrictions on how far you have to be back from the street or from the property lines, those are also things to consider before you purchase.
Yeah, and there is no rules or rhyme or reason for restrictions either. It depends on what someone else in the past recorded for it, and you can't just change it. So as the owner, I can't just go and say, okay, now I'm going to change it. Now this is my property and I'm going to do something different. No, it was established. It was recorded. That was what was it. It was a condition of a previous sale. So you can't just change it without a lot of permission. But some of those restrictions would be like, it could be like you said, setback, minimum size square footage, could be the direction of your garage.
Correct.
It could be material that you're going to build your home. It could be, only one home on the lot. No double. You can't have
subdivide.
Can't subdivide. So there's just a lot of stuff. So it's that doing that due diligence is important. And also you said something earlier of knowing the easement. Besides just like a driveway, there could be a future easement that's been pre-recorded.
Correct.
Like for a green like a trail or something like that, that's maybe there and that's maybe not built out yet. But you just got to pay attention to everything that's on there.
And easements on property that you're getting ready to buy. You need to know if there's a piece of your property that someone else is going to be allowed to use prior to buying it.
Yes, because some dude's just going to be walking across the property and going, who are you?
Correct.
And they have total permission, and you got to be okay with that.
For sure.
Yes. Speaking of septic tanks or treatment plants, you have to have a perk test done to make sure that soil is compatible to be able to have a treatment plant.
Correct.
And so they'll just have to work through their builder or whoever the professional you're going to have coming in to install that, to have all that testing done to make sure. But that's part of that due diligence period. And so you don't want to just have a week's worth of due diligence when you're buying land either. That's something we haven't said. And I think it's real important to make sure that you're writing into your offer or your contract a good amount of time to complete all these different things that we're just talking about. Because it's not done overnight.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's not. And you need to rely on the team of people that's around you, those professionals that know what to look for, that know what's needed, and that can advise you on things that you may have been overlooked or not thought of.
Right. I mean, that builder is so important.
Very important.
Picking the right builder is a key to having a successful build.
Agreed.
Because if you get somebody that doesn't really know what they're doing, or maybe just has a personality that doesn't mesh up with yours as well, and it's going to be like maybe not so on the game for it.
Especially if it's a custom home.
Yeah, because they got to be really in tune with all those deadlines, bringing all those people in. So you need to interview your builder
and have a well-connected builder.
Yes,
a well-connected builder can save you a lot of time and money if they are well respected and they have a great team of people and subcontractors around them. That makes all the difference.
It definitely does. Talk about timeline, because we have talked about so many different things to be careful of when you're buying land. And I can imagine that, this could be amazing and go quickly, and then this could take forever, or we might have a delay here, or we might have a delay there. What's a reasonable expectation for if somebody's building a house on a piece of property?
It really goes back to what your land looks like to start with. If you're buying in a neighborhood and it's already graded and you already have your plumbing and your sewer and you already have that, a lot of times you can build a home in 6 months.
Yeah.
But if you're building on raw land that has trees or needs a lot of dirt work or has a lot of drainage issues, you're looking at up to a year.
Could be.
It could be.
And the time of the year.
Weather impacts everything. If it's too cold, they can't sheetrock. If it's too warm, sometimes you're especially if a metal building. A lot of people are building barn dominiums right now, and that heat will affect your wood fixtures inside. There's a lot of things that people don't necessarily think about when building.
Yeah. If you're thinking about buying land and building a home, having the right guidance can make all the difference in the world between having your dream home and having a major headache. So if you thought this information was helpful, we've got some resources down below to help you buy the perfect piece of property and to build your dream home. So click the link below. If you're thinking about making a move anywhere around DeSoto County, Mississippi, my team at Local Agency Realty Group would love to help. You can call, text, or message us anytime. And if this video has helped you better understand the area, make sure you hit subscribe. I share new videos regularly to help you navigate living and moving to this market. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.